A warning to America, skyrocketing cancer rates linked to wireless radiation, and why Kamala Harris is ignoring it. One thing that should be above politics is the health and safety of our children and loved ones. But today, inaction from our leaders on wireless radiation risks is leaving millions of Americans at risk. Recently released data from Denmark has revealed a terrifying increase in cancer rates, up to 100% in some of the deadliest forms of cancer. This includes brain and central nervous system tumors, a statistic that demands our urgent attention. Wireless radiation from cell phones and other devices is a major suspect, with researchers from the U.S. National Toxicology Program, NTP, and Italy's Ramazzini Institute, RI, finding clear evidence linking radiofrequency radiation, RFR, exposure to cancers like those that have claimed the lives of political figures such as John McCain, Ted Kennedy, Beau Biden, and more. These were not isolated cases but potential early warnings of what prolonged wireless exposure could mean for public health. Ignoring a warning from Denmark, a health crisis on the horizon. The recent Danish cancer report reveals a dramatic 100% increase in certain cancers, especially brain and central nervous system cancers. Denmark, where companies like Nokia and Ericsson popularized wireless technologies earlier than anywhere else, is providing the world with a critical, yet terrifying preview of what might be heading to the United States. If we don't act on these findings, the U.S. could face a similar health crisis. For years, safety standards set by regulatory bodies like the FCC have relied solely on thermal, heating effects of radiation. But recent evidence, including research from the NTP and RI, clearly demonstrates that non-thermal effects, biological changes in the body without heating, are real and carry substantial health risks. This is no longer a scientific debate but a public health emergency that's being ignored by our political leaders. Political figures lost to wireless radiation-related cancers, a disturbing pattern. Consider this. Several prominent figures, including Senator John McCain, Senator Ted Kennedy, and Beau Biden, suffered from glioblastomas, a deadly brain cancer. These cases align eerily with the types of cancer that recent studies, including the NTP and RI findings, have linked to wireless radiation exposure. Such a connection should raise alarms at the highest levels of government. These leaders' lives were taken by the same types of cancers that are now rising at alarming rates in Denmark, and could soon see similar increases in the U.S. This rise in deadly cancers is not just a coincidence. The cancers affecting McCain, Kennedy, Biden's son, and others are the very same that the NTP and RI studies associated with prolonged wireless radiation exposure. With Denmark now showing a sharp increase in these cancers, the evidence is stronger than ever that we're dealing with a public health issue that demands immediate action. Why Kamala Harris has failed to protect Americans. If the threat is so real, why has the Harris administration failed to act? In 2021, the U.S. Court of Appeals ruled that the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, failed to protect Americans from non-thermal risks of wireless radiation and ordered the agency to update its safety guidelines, which haven't been updated since 1996. Despite this ruling, Kamala Harris has not pressured the FCC to make changes. This failure to act is not just a bureaucratic oversight, it's a life-or-death issue for millions of families. Instead of following the court's orders and prioritizing public health, Harris's administration has allowed corporate interests to drive policy. The wireless industry's powerful influence seems to have sidelined any meaningful action to protect Americans, even when research shows that our outdated safety standards leave people vulnerable to cancer and other serious health issues. Defunding cancer research, Harris's biggest failure. Even more disturbing is the fact that Harris's administration ended funding for the National Toxicology Program's wireless radiation cancer research. The NTP's study, one of the most significant cancer research efforts ever, found compelling evidence that wireless radiation can cause cancer. After these results were published, funding was cut, effectively silencing research that could have led to safer technology standards and greater public awareness. By defunding the NTP's research, Harris has shown that her administration is willing to put corporate profits over public health. Millions of American families, especially those with young children, are left unprotected, with no further federal research on the potential dangers of the devices we use every day. The Danish report, an urgent call to update wireless radiation safety standards. The report from Denmark, combined with the NTP and RI studies, should be a wake-up call. This isn't just about protecting today's generation, but about securing a safe future for our children. Wireless radiation penetrates children's thinner skulls more easily, potentially exposing their developing brains to greater risks. Long-term exposure, starting in childhood, could have severe consequences on health outcomes as they grow. The evidence is clear. The FCC's outdated guidelines are no longer sufficient. America must act swiftly to reclassify RFR risks, update safety standards, and enforce stricter controls on wireless technology. Waiting is no longer an option. A vote for Harris is a vote for cancer. Here's what's at stake. Let's be blunt. If Kamala Harris continues in office without addressing these critical health risks, we can expect a future where Americans, especially our children, face rising cancer rates. Harris's failure to act and her administration's decision to defund life-saving research demonstrates a blatant disregard for the health of American families. A vote for Harris is effectively a vote for the status quo, outdated safety standards, corporate interests over public safety, and increasing cancer rates. To protect the health of our children, we need leaders who will demand updated FCC guidelines, press the FCC to reclassify RFR risks, and create safety standards that consider non-thermal biological effects, protecting Americans from the real, scientifically established dangers of wireless radiation. Restore cancer research funding. Reinstate funding for critical NTP research that can further explore RFR risks and inform safer technology standards. Prioritize public health over corporate interests. Elect leaders who are willing to hold the wireless industry accountable and put the health of Americans first. Final thoughts. America, don't ignore this warning. The data from Denmark should not be ignored, nor should the alarming patterns in cancer rates. Our leaders' inaction is allowing preventable cancers to rise, and our children are most at risk. Kamala Harris's failure to act on court orders, her decision to end critical cancer research, and her unwillingness to stand up to industry influence are putting all of us in danger. This is an issue that crosses political lines. It's about the health and safety of every family, every community, and the generations to come. A vote for Harris is a vote for continued inaction and rising cancer rates. If we truly care about the future of our children and our own health, we must demand leaders who prioritize public health over profit. The time for action is now. Don't let Harris's inaction continue to endanger American lives. It's time to vote for leaders who will protect us, demand accountability, and make public health a priority. Learn more. Visit RF Safe for detailed information on the dangers of wireless radiation and how we can work together to protect the health of our future generations.